So I remember feeling, alive, feeling really good. So I was committed at this point, ready to keep moving forward. And that takes me on to the next path. See, I'm a believer now that in life, if you really want to do something amazing, you have to take the first step. And the action part of it, taking that first step, will then lead you to the next part of your journey, wherever that may take you. And it's all going to happen organically, exactly the way that it should. When you just surrender and let go of any attachments and trying to steer it in the right direction, you just have to commit. And when you do that, it's like the GPS for life. You won't get the next turn until you take the first action step, and then from there, you'll get the next turn. And things can also change along the path. And where I'm going with this is that something changed for me. So 3-4 months in, I start eating the fruits, start eating the vegetables. All the other things start to fade out of my life. And then I go into the YouTube channel. I'm watching this guy, Dan McDonald, who's also known as the Life Regenerator on YouTube. Awesome guy, check him out. He's very well known there, and he was one of the main inspirations on my journey and my transformation happening. And so I was watching his videos. Pretty entertaining guy as well. And he had one episode where he was talking about cellular detoxification, regeneration, and he had these little bottles, these little tinctures of herbs. And he was talking about them, and he was also sharing that these herbs came from a source, a gentleman who's his mentor, Dr. Robert Morse, who is a naturopathic doctor in Sarasota, Florida. So instantly I'm turned on to this whole thing. First of all, this guy's kind of like a mentor for me, and he's sharing something that really helped change his life. And so I'm turned on, I'm activated, I'm listening. And he talks about these individual herbs for cellular healing. And I thought, this is the next part. This is the next part of the journey. So I instantly start looking up Dr. Robert Morse. And sure enough, thank whoever that this man has a YouTube channel, and he has videos with free content where he goes into detail about these herbs, about what he teaches, his classes. And I thought, this is just perfect. This is exactly the teacher that I need right now. This took me on to the second part of the journey, which is where the magic starts happening. So here I am, 30 years old, 6 months into my journey, feeling better, but just in the beginning of it, started losing weight. So my body's flushing out toxicity, flushing out inflammation, flushing out all of starting to clean the internal terrain. And Dr. Morse was talking about, adrenal glands and lymphatic fluids and digestion and things like the endocrine system. I didn't know a thing about what he was talking about. I just kept listening to the videos. And before I knew it, I felt like I really knew this information deep down, like I had actually been in this place before. And everything that he was talking about made sense. It just came full circle for me. And I remember going to his website, and he had these kits of detoxification kits that were all labeled weeks 1 through 4, 4 through 8, and they just kept going. So they're basically all set up for you. And I remember getting my first order in and getting that in the mail. And I remember the excitement coming out of, wow, I get to try something new. I was already feeling good. And through the process of where I was at that point, and then adding in these herbs, it took things up to the next level. So I went from feeling good and losing some weight to now on the accelerated path. Because when you bring in botanical herbs, these herbs are tissue specific. They're designed to help you and assist your body in cellular detoxification. So what happens, let's just say, for example, you have a liver issue, fatty liver, some sort of issue with your liver. what happens is that just means the liver is a bunch of cells. The cells around that make up the liver are starting to die off, and when that cellular degeneration starts happening, you start having issues. And the lymphatic system, which is your body's internal sewer system, gets backed up, the toxicity starts overloading, and then bad things start happening. And so that's where I was during that time. So there, when I reached this level with these herbs, I was really excited because the botanicals are survivor plants. These are plants like, for example, dandelion greens, right? Those grow all over the place. They grow in the backyards, they grow through concrete, they grow in cities, they grow in nasty places, and you can't kill them. You could put the weed killer on them and they don't go away. In fact, they come right back up in a few weeks. So that tells you one important thing, that they're survivor plants. They're here to help you heal. And they're alkalizing, they're detoxifying, they're amazing for the liver. Burdock root's another good one. So these herbs are tissue specific. So if you have an issue happening, a symptom happening, you can add specific herbs in to target those areas. Well, I had adrenal fatigue and exhaustion. I had digestive issues, liver issues were coming on because of all the alcohol and drug use, high blood pressure, heart disease, on and on and on. So I started using these botanicals as an option for me to start healing myself and putting nutrition, because that's what botanical herbs are. They're nutrition. Now, they're not calorically dense nutrition like a potato. However, they have the micronutrition that the cells feed off of. And so when you put those in the body, they're catalysts. They get into the cells, and through that process, you can start to begin to regenerate those cells. So this is actually really exciting stuff. And as I started adding in these herbs, slowly, one by one, things started to turn on. Blood pressure was improving dramatically. I mean, everything had started to kind of stabilize. And then I went through some really challenging issues, because when I was a kid, somewhere in teenage years, 15, 16 years old, I was having severe acne, cystic acne. These are the kind that you get, not just little pimples that have whiteheads. These are like boils where they're hard and they hurt and they can bleed. Sometimes they bleed through my shirts. Really embarrassing. I mean, I had such a complex in high school because I didn't even want to take my shirt off in the locker room or go to the beach. I didn't want people standing behind me. Just to give you an idea about how serious it was. I mean, having just a regular pimple, no problem. But these were like left scars. Okay, so this started early on in teenage years. That really was a challenging time for me. And as a teenager, so I tried all the lotions and potions and creams and all this stuff that the dermatologist would recommend to try to get rid of this. And nothing worked, okay? I took the retinol, I took the doxycycline, all of these different, Retin-A, everything. It didn't work. And I finally went back and I begged the dermatologist. I said, we got to figure out something to get rid of this. So they said, well, let's try. The last thing that we can think of is Accutane. Now, if you've never heard of Accutane, just go and Google it, read about the side effects, and you'll see what I mean. It's a very toxic formula that's prescribed to people with cystic acne, and it's so toxic that every 6 months or every 6 weeks I'd have to go in, get blood work panels done to make sure my body's accepting it, make sure my liver's okay. And going through this process, it was quite traumatic. So back to the herbs, what's really cool about these botanical herbs is that they started to work on a cellular level. I actually felt like when I'd take these herbs, my body would just feel something was happening inside on a cellular level that felt really good. And at that point, I made the decision that I was going to go full in. I started using these herbs for a few months. I decided that I was going to go and take his class to get certified as a detoxification specialist, so I could work with more people and know exactly what I'm doing. So I went in, took the class, and I was so excited to be there. I remember everybody was so kind and loving, and I'd never experienced that before in a community. You know, most of the people I hung out with were drinking beer, snorting cocaine, using steroids. Nobody really knew how to really connect. When I went to this class, you guys, I was just blown wide open. People were hugging each other, sharing their stories about their health and some of their challenges. Some people had cancer and they were in remission through these using these herbs, and some of them had been able to do some really amazing work healing themselves. I just knew I was in the right place. I'd never really hugged anybody. So at that point, that was like the beginning of my emotional detoxification. There's many layers that go into this whole thing. And that's one of the key ingredients, is the emotional healing and the mental emotional connection and healing. You know, the losing weight and the cellular detoxification, they're very important too. But I would say that looking back now with the wisdom that I have and the experience that I have, the emotional and the mental, that connection, that is, I would say, the most important part of it. Because when you get that online and you start cleaning and healing out that area, then it gets real pretty and amazing. Because when people started opening up, I felt safe to share, and then I could share some of my story, which I'd never really done and been open about. And I started to feel such a difference in how everything was working for me. And I also felt like me sharing and me being in that place felt very like familiar. I don't know if any of you have ever had that feeling where you go somewhere, you meet somebody, and you're like, this is a really familiar feeling. Well, that's what I was experiencing. And so I just knew I was in the right place. And I thought, you know, my story on what happened, here I am, a guy that's around 30 or 31 at the time. I'm at this class. My lifestyle was, I come from a background of completely the opposite, a total 780. Oh wait, a 180 or 360? I don't know. Anyway, did a total turnaround with my diet, my lifestyle, and I was thinking to myself, gosh, if I'm able to do this, I'm going to teach this and share this with people for the rest of my life. Because I know for sure that there's somebody out there, could be you, who doesn't like vegetables, can't stand vegetables. Maybe your son or daughter, you can't get them to eat vegetables, and they just won't do it. Well, I also had that same experience for 30 years. So I know that there's somebody out there who can benefit from just this story alone. And so I feel really good about this, you know, sharing this information. But back to the whole transformational story, because at that point when I was in that class, everything started shifting and changing, and I was meeting some great people and hearing some great stories gave me more momentum to keep going. And then I remember leaving there and getting and feeling inspired to start making YouTube videos. And that's where it all began. Well, for the YouTube videos at least. So where I'm going with all of this is that I came from a place that was very destructive. I was able to overcome these health challenges, and today at 40 years old, I'm able to I'm still on track. I haven't had any kind of major setbacks. I've been able to lose the weight, keep it off. Now, I've dramatically changed my diet and my lifestyle, and I mean, I'll still occasionally, I'll be totally transparent here with my current lifestyle, because I want to bring you into where I'm at now. So fast forward now 10 years. The first 2 years 31 and 32 years old, I was eating basically 100% raw fruits and vegetables. That means I was eating foods in their natural state. They weren't cooked, they weren't processed. And these foods were mostly like juices, green juices, smoothies, fresh fruit. I was probably eating close to 80% fruit, 20% veggies, no fat at the first 2-year mark. I was not eating any fats. I mean, occasional scoop of peanut butter when I would need it to just kind of calm me down. But I wasn't eating, at that point, I had never even tried guacamole or an avocado. That's real. 2 years I didn't touch an avocado. Now, when I got my hands on my first avocado and started bringing in more healthy fats, things started changing, because then I knew that was the balance that I was seeking, because I'd been eating 100% raw, no fat, high fruit and vegetable diet, for 2 years. And I had started cleaning out my body. The cellular detoxification started, was on the fast track. And so when I started getting the fats in, I knew this is what I'm looking for right now. That takes me up to the next level. And that was finding balance, because I did such an extreme radical shift for 2 years that I suppose it's probably sustainable depending on who you are, where you are on your journey, and where you live and what you have access to. But for me, after that run of 2 years, I just knew I wanted to find some balance. There was something missing. So I started adding in a little bit of healthy fats. Now at that point, my body went through another change where I actually started to gain weight, because I was down around 170, 175 pounds at 6'3". I was very skinny and people thought I was sick. So when I started adding in the fats, my weight started going up a little bit, about 180, 185 pounds. And that was cool, because I wanted to put on a little bit of weight. And that was the exciting part of that. That was like turning over a new stone. And I was still eating basically 90% raw fruits and vegetables. I had the healthy fats in there. And then I would eat the 10% would be somewhere in areas like lentils, steamed, like sprouted and steamed lentils and mung beans, the occasional rice. I never did go back to like the breads and the pastas. Those kinds of things they just didn't interest me anymore. Definitely no meat. So today, at 40 years old, I'm still a full-on plant-based eater. I'm not 100% raw, but I'm somewhere between 80 and 90%. And what I mean by that is that my lifestyle has shifted a little bit. I've done a lot of traveling. I've been on the road a lot. I've moved around a lot. I've been in exploratory mode. And I haven't always had a large kitchen to work in. So I've had to, pivot and shift and find ways to keep myself healthy and going, because I will not go back to eating the standard American diet. So how do I do it? What do I do now? Well, I discovered intermittent fasting, and that's going to take us into the third segment of this, so I can share with you guys a little bit about my current place, what I do now regularly, so it gives you an idea, maybe some inspiration, and it'll help to kind of bring all this together so you understand my journey and where I'm at today, so that maybe you'll try some of it. If you have any questions, there's a little comment link below. You can drop your comments in there and I'll get back to you within 48 hours. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to see you on the next clip.